What do you think are the biggest pitfalls in a franchise? If people are looking at franchises, like you said, Nick, you wouldn't be a good franchisee. Chris wouldn't be a good franchisee. What do people maybe not think about when they're looking at franchises that they need to be aware of as potential downsides?
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Nickonomics. I, of course, am your host, Nicholas Haluski, and on today's episode, we are getting wet and we are getting wild because we have Aaron Harper, the owner and CEO of Rolling Suds, with us today on the podcast. And Rolling Suds is the first national franchise of power washing companies that has grown from one location to about 187 locations in 26 different states in less than 2 years. Now, the crazy part is, this isn't even the first time Aaron's done something like this. Aaron was responsible for the growth of ChemDry and the growth of Patch Boys into the largest brands in their space in the world. From there, he also went to the second largest conglomerate of home services brands in the world and grew them to 12 brands, 47 locations in 55 countries. And I'm tired just saying his resume. Well, in this episode, Aaron not only tells us the things you would expect from a franchisor, like the size of territories, how much they cost, what types of revenues you can expect in the first few years, but he also shares some insights that honestly I didn't expect, like his ambitions to be the 1-800-GOT-JUNK of his space and the perfect personalities for franchising. He also shares the personalities that should not get into franchising. Spoiler alert, he tells me I should never get into franchising. He tells it to my face. And you need to listen to the end in order to hear his reasons for who should get in and who should not get into franchising. If you're at all interested in franchising, if you've ever thought about it or contemplated it, don't skip this episode. This episode is for you. And if you like this episode, like, subscribe, share, you know what to do. But with that, let's just hop into the show.
All right, Aaron, super stoked to have you here today. Mainly, I'm just jealous because you were on Chris's podcast and I saw how much freaking fun you guys had. I'm hoping to fly out to Tennessee next week too.
Okay, yeah. It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. You have me on your podcast and then you come to Tennessee. It's just part of it.
If anybody doesn't know, Chris had Aaron on his podcast. Aaron said we power wash a 3,000 square foot house in 25 minutes. He got lots of comments saying that's not possible. And so Chris actually flew out to Tennessee and live streamed them cleaning a 4,200 square foot house, I think it was, in 22 minutes. Was that right?
Yeah, 4,825 square foot. We did it in 22 minutes with two guys.
22 minutes, 4,800 freaking square feet. Anyway, I loved that Chris flew out there. I think that was so awesome that you invited him out and taped it. And I watched the video when your guys were hustling. It was so good. Oh, and if
it was a 3,000 square foot house, it would have been done in 15 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. 4,800 square feet in 22 minutes was like, okay, even though they were hustling, that's totally doable. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility. All right. So for those listening, Aaron, what is your business and what do you do?
I run a franchise system of a brand called Rolling Suds, and it's a residential and commercial power washing company. And we have 187 locations in 26 states.
And power washing, you're talking about cleaning commercial buildings, homes, the whole gamut.
Residential and commercial buildings. Basically, if it is a structure and it is outside, we can clean it.
Okay. How did you get into that? Nobody dreams as a little boy, like, I want to get into a power washing franchise. How? What's your background? Tell me your story, kind of how you ended up here.
So my background is in franchising. So I've been involved with helping two brands become the largest brand in the world in that industry while I was there. So carpet cleaning, then drywall repair.
What was the carpet cleaning company?
ChemDry.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure I know the franchisee here. I'll share his name with you after. Maybe you know him.
Yeah. ChemDry is one of the largest brands in the world. Very established carpet cleaning concept. And then the Patch Boys was the drywall repair brand. That one was effectively a turnaround because the company I worked for acquired it and there was no management team in place with 100 locations. And they were like, Aaron, here you go.
Oh, my gosh.
So we had to do a lot of work. Turned that brand around and then in 2 years launched 223 locations in 2 years. And they all opened and were profitable within the first 3 to 6 months. Some within the first 2 weeks, depending on the operator. So that's when I started getting involved on a thought leadership level in the franchise space, because that very rarely happens. And then I was helping build the second largest conglomerate of home service brands in the world. And we built a company to 12 brands, 4,700 locations, 55 countries. and had the job offer of a lifetime at that company. They wanted to pay me about $1 million a year to franchise a business for them. And I was like, no, thank you. I'll go do it on my own.
I'm sufficiently intimidated and insecure, so congratulations. What drew you to franchising? Like, why work in the franchise space? You could have worked in any corporate setting. What is it about franchising you liked?
I love the idea of helping people become business owners. As you know, and as I know, now that we're on the other side of that, like, business ownership is hard, it's scary, it's lonely, it's not for the faint of heart. But when you have a franchise, you have less risk, assuming you find the right brand.
Why do you have less risk?
Because you have the community of people, right? So you have a bunch of people who are doing the same thing in different markets. You have proven systems, proven models. You have help with marketing, call center, insurance, recruiting help, equipment, trucks, like all the stuff that would take potentially years to figure out. We've condensed down into a training program. And a good franchise, basically, you've heard people probably say this, like, a good franchise turns years into months and months into days and days into hours. So you're paying for something and you have an ongoing royalty for that service, but you're skipping years of trial and error and you're getting effectively to scale faster. And so you're using one form of leverage, which is capital, to get another form of leverage, which is time.
So essentially, the franchise model is they create the playbook, they have the branding, they tell you everything exactly step by step, how you launch, how you manage, what the systems and processes look like, maybe what your tech stack is. They just need a trustworthy, hardworking entrepreneur who's going to execute on the vision of the brand, and then they share in the upside with equity with that entrepreneur. Is that right?
They own 100% of their business. Kind of. They own a franchisee owns 100% of their business. They just pay a royalty to license that trademark and business and get the support that they get.
Oh, for the industry, and you can talk about Rolling Suds specifically if you want. What is that royalty? What does that look like? What's the percentage that they pay?
It can range anywhere from 5 to 12% of revenue.
I think McDonald's has their franchisees, they have to purchase food through their distributor.
Yep.
Does Rolling Suds have a similar setup where it's like, hey, you have to purchase your products through XYZ or
equipment? Yeah. So you purchase your equipment through an approved supplier who's owned by my partner. But the equipment that you buy, like our trucks are proprietary. We're power washing, as you saw, 4,825 square foot house in 22 minutes. We're doing 5 stories from the ground. We've done 135-foot water towers. We keep 1,000 feet of hose on every truck. So these are heavy duty. It's not your average power washer. But you can't buy that equipment anywhere else other than Rolling Suds. We build the trucks ourselves, so you literally can't get that build. And it's taken our founders 34 years to figure out that it's that process, it's that truck, it's that equipment, and we have a lock on the manufacturer. So it's literally completely proprietary. So yes, there are different ways that a franchisor makes money. There's distribution models, there's royalty models, there's equipment leasing, there's all these different things. But the point is to create a model where the franchisee can be profitable, because without profitable franchisees, without franchisees who have a model to execute on that can get them to an ROI in a reasonable amount of time, then the franchisor model doesn't work, because we make money when franchisees bring in revenue and want to continue to reinvest and grow their businesses because it's working.
One of the things I recently learned about was Chick-fil-A's franchisee model.
Yeah.
And I realized the franchisees, they don't own the franchise, right? They're compensated well. They have a revenue sharing plan. But if they ever wanted to leave, they don't have a franchise to sell. They don't have a business to sell. And Chick-fil-A has rights to kick them out at their own discretion. What does it look like for Rolling Suds? So I know that Rolling Suds, you guys own, as a franchisee, I own the business. Yep. I'm assuming, though, there are some checks and balances in place where, hey, if you got an operator who's not representing the company well or not doing what they're supposed to, you can kick them out? Or what does that look like?
Yeah. If a franchisee is doing something egregious, they stop paying their bills. They start offering services that are not approved. They use the wrong equipment. They use the wrong logos. They do anything else that can otherwise harm the brand, and therefore other franchisees in the brand who are doing things the right way. there are measures written into our franchise disclosure document that allows them to, they're effectively defaulted on their ownership of that business. So like I always tell people, buying a franchise is not for everyone. Being a franchisee is someone who likes systems and processes, doesn't want to create them themselves. Like I would be a terrible franchisee. I can tell you would also be a terrible franchisee. Chris would be a terrible franchisee. Like it's like, and I hope you don't take that offensively because it's not offensive, but like,
no, if my wife was here, she'd agree with you.
It's very much like, give me the playbook and I'll execute it, versus like, I'm going to go create my own and I'm going to be creative and I'm going to try new things. And I'm going to switch the logos around, or I'm going to try different marketing strategies. Like, it's like, no, you use these approved vendors and it works and you're going to have a predictable result. But that's because we're doing this we're in 26 states. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if I'm a franchisee, I buy in. Are you able to share what it costs to buy in to a franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our franchise fee is $54,900, and that's for about 250,000 people that are protected. So $54,900.
Wow. On top of that, you're gonna have to pay capital expenses to get the vans and the trucks and.
Right. So we bring in multi-unit owners only. So what I told you is just the franchise fee basically that you pay to us. So we do a minimum of 2 territories, and then the franchisee needs to have the capital for the second truck in the bank, and then they need to buy the first truck. So it costs roughly $150 or so to open the first territory, and then another about $150 or so to open the second territory, because you're going to buy the truck, you're going to have working capital, you're going to have marketing costs, you're going to have upfront costs. So for 2 territories, a franchisee is going to need about $300,000
plus 54,000.
That includes it all.
Okay, cool.
That includes it all. And based upon our franchise disclosure document that's current right now in 2024, you're operating on a 30 to 40% EBITDA margin once you get up to multiple trucks, based upon our affiliate location that's been doing this for a long time. So what I did is I said, all right,
wow,
tell me what one truck does. Like, because it's easy to replicate one truck. It's hard to replicate a 34-year-old business and all the nuances that go into it. But one truck is just efficiencies, it's labor, it's leads, it's conversion rate on the leads. It's like, it's rinse, repeat. I can do that thousands of times across the country. So a truck does, if it's operating at full capacity in a Northeastern market, based upon our franchise disclosure document now in 2024, $422,000 a year in top line revenue.
Wow.
With one truck.
That's the max a truck can do, or is that like
in the Northeast?
Minimum?
That's in the Northeast.
It's crazy.
That's
man.
205 days out of the year. That's not Florida or Texas
That's
or
crazy.
North Carolina or
Oh,
Tennessee or Alabama or New Orleans. Like it's so it's a great model.
So if I put in $150,000, let's just, I know you have to sell multiple franchises, but let's just say one location, $150,000. What's the like typical timeline until I get break even? And what's the typical timeline until I get to those 30% EBITDA margins of $20,000, $30,000 a year?
Yeah. So our development schedule, meaning when you're going to open the other territories that you purchase. So I know you're talking about one territory, but we don't sell one territory because the EBITDA margins aren't the same on one truck and one territory, because you have a ton of fixed expenses, like a flex warehouse space and insurance and stuff that as you scale, those costs stay the same, right? So if you buy 3 territories, which is what most of our franchisees do, you need about 350. You are going to get up to 3 trucks. Like the development schedule is within 18 months, we're opening 3 trucks. Like come hell or high water, we're opening 3 trucks and we're blasting marketing and development with those 3 trucks. So 3 trucks times $422,000 a year is $1.2 million.
1.2.
Once you have 3 trucks, those costs, those fixed expenses, like the rent and those other things, have stayed the same. And so you're going to be closer in the range of those 30 to 40% EBITDA margins. So you're operating at a $300,000 to $400,000 cash flow under those assumptions, based upon our original affiliate location that which is the data we have that we put out. Now, I want to be super clear to anyone listening to this. We are a new brand. I raised capital and acquired the franchise rights to this business in January of last year. We started franchising the end of February. So just to be 100% crystal clear with those who are listening, this is based upon our founding location. We do not have a franchisee that's been operating a year yet. July will be when our first 2 franchisees hit a year. But what I can say is that the franchisees are on track for the development schedule that we've built in, which is exciting because they're adding second trucks, they're buying territories and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
How do you go about finding customers? Is that locally? If I'm a franchisee, am I going out pounding the pavement, or is Rolling Suds running national marketing campaigns? What does that look like?
Yes, we have 6 different marketing agencies that generate leads for franchisees. 2 of them are outbound commercial marketing companies.
Wow.
And then 4 of them are inbound residential marketing companies. And we turn those marketing companies on before the franchisees go to training. Then we teach the franchisees how to estimate, give proposals. And for an entire month prior to them going to their in-person training, they are required from 9 a.m. in the morning till 5 p.m. at night for 40 hours a week to do business development, to sell as much as they can of the calendar before they even go to training.
How do they pay for the marketing expenses?
Out of their capital that they paid us up front, in addition to the working capital that they have within that 300 as well.
But is that part of the franchise royalty fee, or are they paying an additional marketing fee?
No. So, and I think this is a misconception with some who think about a franchise and what a franchise does. A franchise is essentially an aggregator of suppliers that provides support to franchisees, and very rarely is a marketing company themselves.
Okay.
And in fact, it's not great if you do have a franchisor that is a marketing company, because I hold marketing vendors accountable and I have leverage to get franchisees discounts. And if they don't perform, I can fire them. Whereas if the franchisor has in-house marketing, truly in-house marketing, the only way they'd be able to fire the marketing company is if they close the division.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier for us to get rid of a supplier than it is to close a division of a company. So all of these vendors I have worked with before, or our founding location has worked with before, and have proven to be that they work. So the franchisees pay them directly, basically.
For people who are looking at Rolling Suds in particular, what's a typical profile of that individual? Are they long history in corporate? Are they serial entrepreneurs? Who's your typical franchise? I know that's a broad question, but if you could rattle off, I don't know, a couple of characteristics.
No. I've done a lot of thought about this. So it's a great question. So I'll start with, we are only looking for people that want to go all in and build a massive business. So I want to do a side hustle and try a pressure washing business and see how it goes and keep my job full time. Not our buyer. And that's okay. It's just not our franchisee. Our franchisee is usually coming from a relatively sophisticated background relative to power washing, right? We have franchisees who have led $50 million raises as the COO for a startup. We've got franchisees who have had 9-figure exits who raised $20 million. We just signed up our largest Fast Signs franchisee about 2 months ago. Fast Signs is a massive sign franchise brand, and his business does $42 million a year. We signed up one of the best poker players in the world. So we're bringing in very highly esteemed individuals who are really well capitalized. They don't need money out of the business for a while. They typically have much more than the minimum of 300 and higher net worth, but they're in this to build $1 billion company. And we have an opportunity to really truly revolutionize an industry that is highly fragmented. And I know that sounds like very high and pie in the sky, but there's no national competitors to us. We're the first sophisticated national player in the space.
Does that worry you at all? Let's say you start gaining some traction.
No. It was actually part of the reason why I chose this business. Because a lot of people listening, I'm sure, have looked into entrepreneurship through acquisition, or they're looking for business to buy. I did the same thing. I looked at 24 different businesses. And one of the things I was looking for is I wanted something where there wasn't a national player in the space yet. No national franchise leader. I'll just use an example to drive the point home. 1-800-GOT-JUNK in the early 2000s did not have any national competitors. They paved the way for college hunks hauling junk, Junk King, Junk Luggers, like J-Dog Junk, like all those brands that you've heard of. 1-800-GOT-JUNK was the first, and they did the pathway for that. You combine college hunks and all those other brands I just mentioned, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK is larger than all of them. Literally, all of them, like combined.
Really?
Yeah. They do $1 billion in system-wide sales annually. $1 billion. They have a franchisee that does $100 million. Just one franchisee.
Just one
Just
franchisee.
one. He's got 1,000 employees. He has 10 markets. Him and his business partners do $100 million a year. But they wouldn't be where they're at if they weren't first. They just wouldn't.
So you're betting on like a first mover's advantage by going into the
100%.
power washing.
There will be people that
space.
will try to follow. Yeah, there will be people that try to follow, but we'll already have 350 units on the road. And we already have, and the equipment that we have is more sophisticated anyways, and they can't go buy that equipment. And then the process that we use is proprietary. So there's a moat to cross in addition to like just the sophistication of a franchise brand.
So I agree with you that franchises are the safest route into entrepreneurship. If you're going to buy something, I think starting an agency business is probably the safest way, built around a skill set that you have, but that's no capital necessarily required. But if you're going to buy something, a franchise is the best way to go. What do you think are like the biggest pitfalls in a franchise? Like if people are looking at franchises, like you said, Nick, you wouldn't be a good franchisee. Chris wouldn't be a good franchisee. What do people maybe not think about when they're looking at franchises that they need to be aware of as potential downsides?
A potential downside would be that they have to follow the system and they have to be comfortable with that. And that is an upside for the right person, and it is a dramatic downside for the wrong person. So if someone is super like innovative and creative and wants to like tinker and try and train and build and like all the stuff that I personally love doing, I know you love doing, like that person shouldn't buy a franchise. But the person who's like, I have executed the playbook at every company that I've worked at, and I've rose up the ranks and I've hit a ceiling at every single place that I've worked at, or I've started a business before and I didn't like the creating part. I just liked the managing and the executing part. Like those people would be phenomenal franchisees. Another potential downside is you have to find the right brand. And I'll be the first. I've been in the franchise industry for years. There's more bad brands than there are good brands. And that's something with the advocacy that I'm doing around responsible franchising. I'm trying to change, but like being a franchisor is hard. Like it's not an easy, intuitive thing. And coming from the background of franchising, coming into power washing, that's going to be a very different opportunity for a prospective franchisee than if I was a power washer and I decided to try to franchise my business. It'd be completely different, and it'd be a much higher risk, to be honest with you.
Chris and I looked at a franchisor just because we've been thinking about some businesses to buy that we might be able to leverage our audiences. And I had a conversation with you about it. And that was the one thing that you really brought up was like, look, when franchisees sign up, they're expecting and should expect a level of support. And so if you can buy a franchisor, but if they don't have that support, you're going to have to sink as much money into that as you would have just starting one up from scratch. So
Correct.
you just have no idea what that brand looks like, what the reputation is like, what the support looks like from the outside, and how important it is for the franchisee's success. So I think that's a really good perspective. I got some rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
Sure. Yep, I'm ready.
What do you love about this business?
I love that it's like simple and dirty and easy. Like we're spraying water and soap on the side of a building and then we're rinsing it off. That's it.
That's so true. It's funny. I do a lot of, do yard work, and there's some yard work that I hate doing. But man, my 10-year-old, I'm trying to get him to do more and more yard work. He sees me pressure washing. He's like, "Oh, hey dad, can I help?" And I'm like, no, I want to do this. There's something there's just something gratifying about watching it. You know what I mean? Anyways, I agree with you. That is the cool part. What do you hate about it?
What do I hate about it?
Yeah.
I'm going to speak from the perspective of the franchisor side versus running a power washing business, because that's what I can speak to. I hate watching franchisees struggle.
Yeah, that would be hard.
It happens.
Right? Because you're not necessarily,
part of
you
the
don't
deal.
own it.
Part
you
of the
don't
deal.
own the company. Yeah. Yep. What keeps you up at night? What are you stressed out about right now?
I am in the process of delegating pretty much everything within the company. And that is the scariest thing I think that I've had to do as an entrepreneur. So I hired a brand president. I hired a chief development officer. I have an executive assistant. She's in my email all day long. I'm training the brand president to run the company. I've let go of sales. So I went from fully involved, like 180-hour weeks, essentially doing all the sales myself and mentally just bogged down, to a level of clarity that is calming, but like nerve-wracking.
What's scary about it?
Well, have you read Traction by Gino Wickman, or do you know EOS?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Letting go of the vine. Letting go of the vine is like, I can sell and recruit franchisees better than anyone. It's my company. Like, they're buying into my vision. And now there's going to be 4 people that replace me. I signed up all 187 of those locations. I personally walked through intro call to signing the franchise agreement. And now I just have to step back, watch someone else do it, provide support, be a cheerleader.
It's a different skill set for sure. I've never scaled a company as big as yours. I've run $30 million companies that I had. And when you scale, you have to hire people that can do certain functions that you can no longer do. And some of them you love, and some of them you don't love. It's hard to find people that are as good as you are at recruiting and retaining, but I have no doubt you're going to be able to recruit and retain really talented, high-level executives just because you have that charisma. People want to buy into your vision in the same way the franchisees did. Now your executives will. So anyways, I get the stress, but I'm also very optimistic for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fortunate in the sense that I do have a really incredible leadership team. I have a really good VP of marketing. I have a chief development officer. The brand president is incredible. The executive assistant's awesome. So feel very good about where we're at, but it's still scary.
Good. All right. So I love this question. Real estate guys are jealous of business guys because they're like, oh, cool, you have cash flows and you can grow that thing. It must be nice to have a business. And business guys are jealous of real estate guys because it'd be nice to just have a piece of real estate that spit off cash I don't have to worry about. It's going to appreciate in value every single year. All of us have a grass is greener mentality in some form or fashion. What industry or business type are you most jealous of right now?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'll tell you mine first.
Yeah, go for it.
Commercial real estate. I look at those guys and I'm like, commercial real estate is just something I'm so jealous of because there's so much demand right now for industrial space in particular that it would be just so nice. Like, you just buy a frame, you let them do the build out, they rent it from you. It's almost like a ground lease to a certain extent. Anyways, that's a business I'm really jealous of.
I've actually thought about that. And I have a buddy of mine who's like, he's been in the home services like space for a long time. And he's like, Aaron, wanna help me raise like $200 million and we'll go buy and build like contractor garages all across the country? Like, he just casually asked me that 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Slade, I've got a lot going on. That's a pretty big ask, but maybe let's revisit in a few years. He goes, I know you could get the money though. I know. I'm like, yeah, I know I could get the money too, but like, do I want to go become like this real estate contractor garage tycoon? Like, I'm not, like, I know the money's there, but like, what do I love doing and what do I derive energy from? And
yeah,
I will throw a curveball answer at you, actually.
I'm ready for it.
I am jealous of the influencers who have 5 to 10 million followers, and they've built a following and an audience that basically allows them to do anything that they want to do forever.
Forever. That's a good one. That's a good one to be jealous
forever.
of. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Launch a business, Sell ad space, just post like whatever they want to do. They can
Whatever
work
they
as
wanna do.
hard or as little as possible.
It doesn't even
That's a good
matter
one. I like
because
that
they've
one.
got so much goodwill built up and so much content out there that it's just a compounding asset.
What are you obsessed with right now? Besides growing Rolling Suds, if you had 2 hours or an hour
Yep.
to just do something that you're super interested in, what is it?
So I'm obsessed right now with the responsible franchising discussion. Like I think about it like a ridiculous amount. The franchise industry has gotten a bad rap as a result of people who have behaved irresponsibly, unethically. And I believe that there is not a quicker path to wealth generation than finding the right brand and executing on the model. I just don't think you might get lucky in real estate. You might, if you have a good idea and you can come up with a new app, barring all of like those success stories for your average, normal American middle class, middle upper class, like person who just wants to own a business, like there's not a quicker path to wealth generation than finding the right brand. However, people don't know about it because it has not been promoted or done in the right way at scale yet. And so when I think about the industry that I love so much, which is franchising, 20 to 30 years from now, I'm zooming out and I'm saying, what do I need to do now? What kind of conversations need to happen internally in the industry now? And the conversation of responsible franchising that I have more or less started about a year and a half ago is now the key talking point in the franchise industry. And I'm working in lockstep with the International Franchise Association to come up with legislation and proposed regulation to avoid these people come into the industry who are not the right people and shouldn't be in it. And so I'm like obsessed with finding a way to have the business and the industry of franchising be more reputable and accessible.
That's awesome. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Aaron. Where's the best place for people to come find you? Is it rollingsuds.com? Where do you hang out?
It's, yeah, if you want to learn more about the brand, it's rollingsudsfranchise.com. But honestly, like Rolling Suds isn't going to be for everyone. We have a very specific niche of a candidate that will work. And I'd rather have you follow along on the content that I put out, because I try to make my content more geared towards just anyone who's interested in franchising or entrepreneurship. So you can follow me on Twitter at Aaron Harper
X,
CEO.
I'm sorry,
I put out
Twitter.
or X. Yeah, X Twitter. I still call it Twitter. But Aaron Harper CEO is my handle. And then my Instagram, I put out at least 1 or 2 videos per day on Instagram, and it's the Aaron Harper. And
cool.
Yeah, those are some places to go.
Well, you're a good guy to follow. I have no inside information, but I know you're not stopping at Rolling Suds as a brand. So I think if people follow you, that they'll have many opportunities down the road to franchise in the future. So anyways, Aaron, this was fantastic, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
I told you. What did I tell you? I told you it was going to be a good episode. Aaron, man, that guy's just impressive. And I want to thank him for taking time and joining us on the episode. I want to wrap up today with a couple of thoughts around franchising and entrepreneurship. Aaron mentioned it in there that he thinks it's the best way to create wealth for somebody who's coming up in the world. And in my experience, I think that the safest way to enter entrepreneurship is to build an agency around a specific skill set that you have. But if you don't have that skill set and you want to purchase something, I think the second safest way is to purchase into a franchise. And the reason I think that is because entrepreneurship is just inherently built with risk. Your venture could fail. Your idea could fail. Maybe people don't like your product. Maybe you're a terrible manager. Maybe there's not enough capital to get you to the end of the row. There's a million reasons why you can fail. And the constant within entrepreneurship is the requirement for you to figure stuff out. So there's so much energy spent figuring things out that it's really hard to then put that towards growing and selling. Well, franchises have a very clear template for you. It's very cookie cutter. This is how we operate. This is how we systematize things. This is what you wear. This is your branding. This is how you market. This is what the store looks like. A lot of things are taken care of for you. You just need to go out and execute and sell. And in my mind, if you've gone through the exercise of identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and you're worried about entrepreneurship because there's a lot of risk involved, and if you're putting capital into something, what if it fails? I would strongly encourage you to take a look at franchises, because they give you the kind of the best of both worlds. There's this very directive approach that the franchises have that tell you exactly how you need to be. And yet there's a lot of autonomy from your end to figure out how you're going to grow that business. So if it's your first step into entrepreneurship, it can be a really great experience. And there's a host of individuals who started in the franchising space and then branched out to other businesses that were not a part of a franchise. If you're interested in the franchise space, send me an email, nick@cofounders.com. I have a couple of friends I can put you in touch with that are franchise brokers or just give you some information on the subject. Thank you so much for joining me. Please remember, stay curious. Curiosity really is a superpower. And the more questions you ask, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more you can earn. Remember what my mom used to tell me, Nick, there's no such thing as dumb questions. Only dumb people who are afraid to ask the dumb questions. I'll see you next time.